Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Humza Yousaf has been stamping his tiny little irate feet and complaining that Lisa Cameron, who crossed the floor from the SNP to the Tories, shouldn't have changed party, she should have resigned and forced a by-election. He's working that on the principle that at least then he's got a chance of getting someone in and he isn't just losing the seat outright. But that's not what happened. She went across. She's entitled to do that. There's a long history of people doing that. And the fact is that there's probably going to be an election within, let's say, 7 months or so anyway. It's looking like a May election. So why go to all the trouble of having an election now and forcing it through? The election wouldn't happen until, say, December if she did that. Right around the Christmas period. It would be a very low turnout because of it. And then, of course, you'd have to go through the whole process in May anyway. So a lot of expense and time and effort and, people having to run around for no reason whatsoever. But, of course, he wants that because he's been totally embarrassed. And so he's calling for her, to do the right thing, in his words, and stand down. Although, why doesn't he do the right thing? It's a one-way street for him here. But, that's how it is. But, of course, she now has basically trolled him. She's absolutely taken the wind out of his sails, and we'll see why. Here goes. Right, so here she is. Now, this obviously Lisa Cameron, I did the video on this morning because she was the victim of thuggery, but you don't expect much less from the jackbooted, brown shirts of the SNP. But she has absolutely owned Humza Yousaf with the response to what he is calling for. So, new Tory MP Lisa Cameron burns Humza Yousaf. Does he really want another by-election, giving his thrashing in the last one? And to be honest, I still take great glee when I'm looking at the Rutherglen election. 20 points. I mean, what a turnout! What a turnaround that was. A swing of 20 points is almost unheard of. Even Professor Curtis, was sitting in the studio stunned by that. Anyway, the former SNP politician says her former party leader's petulant demand for her to stand down are quite comical, as she reminds him that the Nats suffered a catastrophic loss to Labour in Rutherglen and Hamilton West just over 7 days ago. And it's petulant. He's stamping his little feet. He can't believe it. You've got to stand down and all that because he thinks he wants, he wants her to go. But she's got no obligation to go. And I don't blame her for not going and not resigning. Anyway, delighted Rishi Sunak's newest Scottish MP has ridiculed her former party leader, Humza Yousaf, and his petulant demands that she stands down and triggers a by-election. He's like a little schoolboy, isn't he? He doesn't get his own way and he has to stamp his feet again. And it's like, is he 12? I mean, honestly, he's just grow up, Humza Yousaf. Just grow up. Anyway, Dr. Lisa Cameron triggered unbridled fury from the Nats when she dramatically jumped ship from the SNP on Thursday, plunging the party into further chaos. And in a damning indictment of Scotland, she has since been forced into hiding with her family after threats from the nationalist thugs. Because that's all they've got. They've got nothing else. They have this extremism, this division, this hatred of all things that are anti-SNP, driven exclusively, of course, by Nicola Sturgeon and her rhetoric. And that was straight out of the National Socialist 1930s playbook. Find what they hate, make them hate it more, drive dissent, drive division, drive hatred, and then use the hate. And that's what she's done. Anyway, the First Minister and SNP President, Mike Russell, pair of them, pair of what, have led the calls for her to resign as MP for East Kilbride. I can guarantee, it's actually East Kilbride, Straven and Lesmahago. Now, I can guarantee if it was someone coming from Labour to the SNP or the Tories to the SNP, they wouldn't be calling for that person to stand down then, would they? So it seems very hypocritical. But then this is the SNP, being a bunch of hypocrites you've never met. Anyway, Dr. Cameron responded with a barbed reference to her former party's recent disastrous defeat to Scottish Labour in the Rutherglen and Hamilton West by-election. She told the Scottish Daily Mail, "I find it quite comical in a sense, given that meetings I've had locally in the past few months, people have been saying we definitely don't need a by-election. And given Humza's success in the last by-election, I wouldn't really have thought that would be something he would have welcomed at all. No, I mean, really, it is the last thing he wants, because he has been humiliated. And no matter what he says, no matter how long he sits there with that fixed rictus grin on his face, he's lost, and he's lost big time, and it's really embarrassed him. He doesn't like talking about it. It is a major defeat. Announcing her party switch, Dr. Cameron revealed that her mental health has suffered due to the toxic atmosphere within the SNP. And it's an atmosphere that is only going to get worse, especially over the next few days when they're in conference. And Humza is just going to try and push that rhetoric even further. Although there won't be many people listening. And this is the problem, there's increasingly fewer people. Because he's driving them away. Everything he does, every time he opens his mouth, support, evaporates. So it's great, isn't it? Anyway, she was ostracised by colleagues at Westminster because she didn't see eye to eye with them on issues such as gender reform and the controversial decision to stand by sex pest MP Patrick Grady, the toucher-upper of other people's children. The final straw came when party leadership backed a rival candidate in the selection battle in her seat, and her warm welcome from the Tories, including a personal call from the Prime Minister, has left her wishing she'd acted sooner to end her lonely existence as a Nat MP who refused to toe the line. They have a history of rebels. They have a history of punishing the rebels in the SNP. They don't like rebels. And so she is better off out. I'm surprised, in fact, I do say this before, I'm surprised that Fergus Ewing didn't go. Very surprised at that. Wouldn't be surprised, in fact, if he decided in the end he would. But, it's up to Fergus, isn't it? Anyway, she said it's almost like with the SNP you get indoctrinated a bit. Of course you do. It's a cult. And that's what they do. They brainwash you. And if you ever show any signs of individuality, they crush that. They break you. They break your character. They break your force of personality. Because they want you to be a compliant drone uttering the mantra and dogma of the SNP. And if you do anything else, then you are shunned, bullied, ostracised, threatened, physically attacked. We've seen that. And that is what the SNP do. They are a tourist organisation. They should be banned. I think they should be banned. They're that toxic and they're that dangerous. It's like, here, what do you think about things? There's not so... sorry. She's saying it's, here's what you think about things. They're telling you what to think. That's what she's saying. There's not so much, from my experience, individual choice and decision-making or contribution. Of course not. They don't want individualism. It almost becomes like a learned helplessness in a way, and it took a long time for me to rebuild my confidence to even speak about these things. It does feel quite cult-like in the sense that in order to have continued approval, you have to think and act and speak and behave in a way that is expected constantly and never to criticise. And of course, given her job as a consultant, psychoanalyst, clinical psychoanalyst, sorry. She will have undoubtedly, dealt with people who have been indoctrinated into cults. And so she's recognising this. So it is a cult. It absolutely is. It was a cult of personality with Sturgeon there. It's now just a cult, just flat out, because obviously Humza has no personality. But it's as though the party itself becomes the personality. Dr. Cameron also referred to the cult of personality under Nicola Sturgeon. Big brain, we are on the same line, which has had an impact on the Operation Branchform police investigation into money that is allegedly missing from the party accounts. Nothing allegedly, it is missing. She said there's also been a cult of personality as well in terms of not questioning things. And I think that is one of the reasons that whatever happens with the police investigation, that it got to this stage, because people who are starting to question didn't feel able to continue to question. No, because they'd have been bullied and rounded and forced down. That's what they do. The MP has been abused in the street and received a flood of menacing messages by email. I hope the police have been involved. Forcing her to temporarily relocate to a safe house with her SNP councillor husband, Mark Horsham. I wonder if he's leaving the SNP too. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? And her two daughters, Olivia and Charlotte. And she told The Times, we've had a lot of personal threats. Unfortunately, I think that's where the political discourse has got to in Scotland. Aggression, physicality and anger are coupled onto the debate about nationalism. And that is absolutely what they do. They are thugs. They are vicious, thugs, national socialist, those sort, bad guys, World War II, no different. Sadly, such a vitriolic response to Conservative politicians has been witnessed before in this corner of South Lanarkshire. 2 years ago, former councillor Graham Campbell was forced to leave the country after his home and cars were repeatedly vandalised in Straven. That is what they do. They are scum, they are thugs, they are a dangerous criminal organisation, and people need to call them out for it. The SNP needs to be disbanded, and they need to make every member of it be aware and pass the law that being a member of the SNP is a criminal offence. They do it for other extremist political groups. They're no different. Anyway, I shall round off there and I shall come up. That level of aggression, of nationalism that they're showing, that sort of, we're going to beat you black and blue until you agree with us, that is so reminiscent of Germany in the 30s. It is no different. And that is what Scotland is now. It's becoming a dictatorial state controlled by extremists. You're told to toe the party line. Paper's bitter. It's there. They've created in their own image that which they base their party on. It is a fascist state, and that's what they've got. A fascist state with physicality, with aggression, and with people being beaten and forced to run and hide. Well done, Nicola Sturgeon. You've created that. Now, I think that she needs to be charged for being an enemy of the state, for being, I would even go so far, possibly, as saying that it is treasonous what she's done. And that's what she's created. She's created this society. It's not a society of tolerance or of understanding anymore. It's a society of hate. And that's been created entirely by Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP. And it's sad to see. Anyway, I shall round off there. Thank you very much for watching. Hope this has given you food for thought. And do please hit the subscribe button. Leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video. And until next time, stay safe. Stay very safe. Stay well. And don't go to Glasgow town centre because there's a bunch of child murdering wankers marching in the street. Just letting you that know, because that's going to be a story later today. I might even be next, depending on the editing. Anyway, thank you and goodbye.